Welcome back. This is part 4 of the soundtrack to Survival. In this fourth installment of the Soundtrack of Survival series, our panel dives deep into how music across generations, gospel, blues, hip hop, reggaeton, and trap, has served as a lifeline, a language of resistance, and a blueprint for resilience in black and brown communities. From the coded messages of spirituals to the bold truths in trap, we unpack how rhythm becomes rebellion and lyrics become legacy. This episode honors the genius behind the beat and the healing that happens when we tell our stories in sound. Let's get it. Next question, from spirituals and gospel to hip hop, R&B, and reggaeton. How do you see music acting as a form of generational resilience and resistance in black and brown communities today?
I think we said a lot, right? And when I see this genre, like these things, I was just listening to a podcast and Young Jeezy was on it, and he said how people listen to podcasts to learn about different things and different skills. He said I would listen to music like that. And I think music for me is a playbook. And I think some other people said that on here. Like when I need motivation, like it's teaching me how to be motivated. It's showing me the steps that I need to take in order to get through a difficult situation. And even going back into like enslaved days, those double and triple entendres, like it's saying, nah, dude, you need to wait in the woods for a couple more days because this is happening, then you need to go. Now you go to yonder. Like, all right, now move like right now. So like to me, music's the recipe for resistance and healing, right? Because healing is resistance as well, because hurt people often hurt other people, which creates those generational curses. So if I can write a song, I can listen to a song to heal what's hurting inside to me, to let go of my trauma. Now I'm not passing it along to my kids or the people that are encountering me. And so when I see hip hop and all these other stuff, I think it's those rhythmic beats, them drums. Like I love a good horn. Like it's something that just kind of resonates with a different frequency and vibration that brings up the opportunity for healing in communication.
Yo, can I hop there? I'm gonna be quick on mine real quick. So, because you said that in terms of rhythmically, I was gonna say the resistance is in the timing in the music because each generation of uh black music plays with timing, and timing in itself makes you confronted. Are you a part of that timing or off of that timing? And things come from that. So Western, oh yeah, we going deep, you know what I mean? Listen, I don't even know I'm supposed to say this. These are codes, you feel me? But break it down. So like Western European classical music is at a certain timing. When you bring in blues, it has a different timing to it. Scale is counting time, 12 bars changes what that is. Now, because of that time, it makes you do a completely different thing and sit here, it makes you do this. Then you add in jazz, which has another bar structure. You add in rap, hip hop, trap, drill, all these other, every one of these have a different beats per minute and a different timing that then makes that generation or the generations around how we do. Even wedding fans at the wedding fans at dance has the don't. So are you with us in this timing or are you against us musically, rhythmically, like you said? So I would say the resistance, before you even get to the words, the resistance is in how we choose to define what time is in each generation.
Well, I guess I should pick up from that because I think in this same space of time, the resistance looks different for different groups at different times. Trap music is telling the story in a resilience and a resistance way of life and poverty, right? For as much as we want to knock the poverty mindset of, let me wear all of this stuff, we also are not building systems to help them get out of poverty. They realize or they accept they are stuck in sort of this cycle with no true way out. So they might as well enjoy the best way they can. And in what they talk about, which is how they spend their time in those communities, while we don't want to hear it, it's true for them. They have to survive in the illegal game market, whatever that is, right? And I love that, Wayne. It is the grandkid of blues, right? Because when hip hop first came out for us, it was the fight between conscious hip hop and commercial hip hop. Both had a resistance and a resilience because commercial hip hop was saying, remember when y'all banned us and y'all made us go on this chilling circuit? We're going to show y'all we can sell out and we can make music that your folks will enjoy without losing our own culture in the process. There is resistance in that, and there's still resiliency in that model, even when people knock it, right? Because for those folks who do figure out how to do it, it becomes generational wealth changing for their families. Say what you will about Cardi B and Offset, but those kids are certainly starting out with a financial footing that I did not have access to, things that I didn't have access to, right? That is a reality for where they are. So there's times where we think about capitalism and colonialization. We also have to accept the reality of we're here in the throes of it, right? And we just can't upend those systems overnight. So what does survival look like? And survival looks like resiliency and resistance because it shows up in our music, because every generation, the other generation criticized their music, right? When they started out in the 70s and they were starting to do more of that black exploitation, people were frowning upon that. Y'all are getting too close. Again, if we think about Al Green, loved and revered and hated for the fact that what he could do and sound in church, and he can still do it on an R&B album. And it's like, who is he? Right? What does this come from? But again, that is sort of where you start to see these resistance at, because even in Al Green's era, they were demonstrating that, yes, while I got my first lessons in this church, my talent let me beyond sort of that. But there was this real tension between secular and non-secular music, which still exists to this day, when at the heart of your question, both genres, all genres, in fact, are doing this. It's a form of generational resilience, which is why the music of the generation is produced by their generation. I couldn't produce trap music. Wasn't me, right? Now, my brothers could have, because that was them, right? But they also wasn't rappers because that wasn't their talent, right? And so when you think about these things and these pieces, everybody can't do trap just because they're in the hood, right? You have to have a certain set of talents or skills or innate energies to pull that piece out to really deliver that thing. The artistry in that, there's a resiliency in that artists getting to that point of their voice being out there, right? There's a resistance that comes to that, because we know in the capitalization of it all and the colonization of all of entertainment, you've got to pay the piper, right? You got to pay to get into that barrier of entry before your stuff can be played on radios and all of this. And so when we think about resistance and resilience, we have to think beyond the song, even through at the level deeper. What did this artist go through to even get to the point where those words came to them and it could be penned and it was able to put there, right? The timing of it that Wayne said is not just beyond the 12 bars, it's also in the elements of it. If we think about some of the people that we celebrated on this call, we would all say they died too early. Tupac, Biggie, Nipsey, but there's something divine about what they left us that still resonates, that somehow intimates to me that it wasn't part of their active voices that was going to be needed for this future journey, right? And what they left us was from their gift that we were supposed to take forward, right? And so this is where I think to that we have to think beyond just the song and throughout the element of, because Nipsey Hussle is more than his songs. It's also understanding the journey that he went through and how his own evolution and how his own lyrics evolved over time and his own artistry, where you start to see that, right? And so when you understand this, you start to understand more about the artist, because I think the resilience and the resistance shows up in the artist more so than in the outputs that we certainly see, because of how we're trained to receive music in a lot of ways.
So I'm going to add to that and say that the output is the perseverance, right? So the ability to really like keep going amidst adversity, right? and difficulties in our life. So I think that's what music brings us. It brings us that element of perseverance, because what have we been talking about this whole time is how music supports us in different areas of our life, right? So just thinking about how, the form of expression, the storytelling, the coping, when you were talking about trap music, or even unsigned artists that are on YouTube doing music, right? Just thinking about the way that they use it for coping, right? Being able to get through those childhood experiences or those life experiences. So for me, I connect it also with perseverance.
And I'm gonna bring it up in the rear for the gospel crew. So
Come on, PK grandkids.
so gospel plays different roles in different eras. I have the era, you got the Shirley Caesar, you got the Dottie Peoples, you have the Reverend Milton. So you have all these different genres, and then you bring it up full speed where you got the Fred Hammonds, you got Kirk Franklin, you have all these different folks. And now the only one, like at the end of the day, like how it's connecting to Black and brown people is how are they going to know Jesus? They want to know Jesus. So what does Kirk Franklin do? He goes outside of the box. He doesn't stay in the box, and he wants to be able to reach people. And he goes into the secular world where some people just don't want to go. But at the end of the day, the question still remains: the church is dying, and who's trying to save them? I'll leave it right there.
We're like, I'm not talking about gospel. I'm going back to trap a little bit, but like, I don't think we name like the genius in everything that music is. Like, to me, when we're talking about liberation and things like that, music is it shows you the truth, because we're talking about trap. These are a bunch of super predators. How is a super predator making music that's selling millions a record? I'm thinking about Young Jeezy. Young Jeezy outsmarted the record labels and radios. What he was saying, all that stuff used to be censored on radio. He wasn't cussing, but he was talking about snow as like cocaine. And none of his stuff was censored. So they were playing his whole songs, and he just talking about getting you recipes on how to get away from feds selling drugs. That's genius in that. So like there's so many nuggets in like lies that are told against black people, brown people in quote unquote more impoverished areas, and they took this, like Girl Fester said, this chicken circuit, or this trap house slash out the backseat of my car, and now I'm going to make my life story work for me, and I want all y'all to like, now everybody wants to be like that and things like that. So I just wanted to point out the genius in the artistry. It's like a lot of trap music isn't as lyrical, but the storytelling, how it invites you to be a part of it, like it's just a game changer.
I don't know, for some reason it brings me to Public Enemy. And I don't know, just that question it takes me to Public Enemy, right? When I think of Public Enemy, I have mad respect and love for Public Enemy. Besides Karis One, they gave me the theory of consciousness and revolutionary thoughts. They had all these things that instilled in me, because I was like finding out where I can channel my anger for the things I was feeling. And they were speaking it for me in so many ways.